by a bent line, by a straight line, by a crooked. The Crooked Path, a podcast for modern cunning folk with Peter Pagan.
Hello and welcome to The Crooked Path. My name is Peter Pagan, and this week we're going to take a look at the nature of magic. But first, here's some news. So, those who've been keeping score, September's going to be a busy month. First of all, it looks like the weekend intensive in North Carolina on the first weekend of September is going to be postponed. Things aren't just working out right to have it then, so we may try to move it to later in the year or perhaps early next year. But don't worry, boys and girls, because there's still other opportunities to come and throw rotten tomatoes at me, or even tomatoes. The following weekend, the weekend of the 13th, 14th, 15th, 13th, 14th of September, I will be in Chicago, and I've been told I've been pronouncing it wrong all these years. It's Chicago, not Chicago. But what do you expect? I'm a crazy foreigner. And I will actually be at 3 events during my weekend in the, do they call it the Windy City still?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do.
Cool, got that right at least.
Mm-hmm.
During the day on Saturday, I will be visiting the Chicago or the Southern Illinois Pagan Alliance, and pimping my workshop that evening at Cleo's store in Rockford, where I will be teaching my visceral magic workshop. And then on the Sunday, I will be at Chicagoland Pagan Pride. I have no idea where it is. Somebody's going to deposit me there. Do a search for Chicago Pagan Pride and you'll find it. And I will be teaching I'll be teaching enchantment at the Cleo store and teaching visceral magic at Pagan Pride. And I will also, at both those locations, have my books and DVDs to sell. So it's a good time to come and get a copy if you haven't already got one. I can deface it for you and reduce its value by signing it, and hopefully we can all have a jolly good time together. Then on September 27th, I will be at another Pagan Pride. This time the Inland Empire Pagan Pride, just northeast of Los Angeles. Somewhere nestling in the foot of the San Bernardino Mountains. And I have no idea where it is, so you're going to have to Google it, I'm afraid, to find it out, because they've changed the location from where it used to be. But it is going to be a fun event, and once again I will be teaching enchantment, and I will be selling stuff. We're actually going to have a full vending booth there, as it's within driving distance. So I'll be selling books and DVDs and glassware. So come and look at our amazing chalices. And I've just received an invitation to participate in LA, Los Angeles Pagan Pride. Actually it's Los Angeles and Long Beach. That's it, LA, LB, PP, the... which is, I think, on the 5th of October, and that is down in its usual place. We're not far from the Queen Mary.
Yes.
Rainbow Park or something like that? Yeah.
Something like that.
Anyway, once again, look it up.
Yeah.
I will be posting links to all of these. The Long Beach, Los Angeles Pagan Pride is yet to be confirmed, because what they've offered I haven't answered yet. So if we're able to, we will participate there. So that is the places where you can come and throw rotten fruit at me. I'd prefer you to throw fresh fruit, because I like fruit. And so if you're going to throw fruit, throw fresh fruit. That's
Rainbow Lagoon.
Rainbow Lagoon. That's only there's a rainbow in there somewhere. So yeah, I'm Ite and a Bite in September, and apparently in October too. So I'd love to see you if you're in the area. So come and say hello. That's it for the news, really. So let's get on to our main topic of the evening, which is the nature of magic. And this has been triggered by a multitude of things. You probably realise that when I do these sort of rambling, ranty podcast episodes, it's because something has poked me in the gut or piqued my interest out in the big wide world. And this one is from a combination of factors. The most obvious one and the most recent one being that last night my lovely wife and I went out on a date, and we went and saw the movie Lucy, which is actually, in my opinion, a really good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can see why some people don't like it. I mean, the guy who was sitting next to us with his girlfriend / wife / whoever it was, it could have been his sister for all I know, but anyway, there's this guy and this gal sitting next to us, and she liked the movie, and he was going, well, it was alright, I suppose, the car chase was good. So, you thought if he was that kind of guy, he would have enjoyed Scarlett Johansson's boobs being on display quite a lot as well, but perhaps not. But anyway, I know there was a mixed response in the auditorium, but Linda enjoyed it and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it made me think on the way home about the nature of magic, because there are a lot of different opinions on what exactly magic is in the pagan community. I've touched on this before in previous episodes, but I'm not rapidly, because this has been growing over a number of years. I'm rapidly, in a monolithic sort of millennial sense, coming to the conclusion that magic really defies definition. I mean, you've got your standard, Crowley quote that gets tripped out whenever anyone raises the subject of what is magic. Magic is the art and practice of bringing about change in the universe in accordance with your own true will. And, that's a great definition, because it's absolutely true whilst telling you absolutely nothing. So it's one of the great definitions of history in my book. Magic is about bringing about change. But a lot of the arguments about the nature of magic is how that change is effected. And there's a large body of the pagan community that seems to think that magic is another name for psychology. Yes, you can change the universe by changing yourself. And once again, at a certain level that is true. But if you take that as the be-all and end-all of what magic is, you're really missing the point a lot, because magic doesn't just happen at a psychological level, and if it does happen just at a psychological level, you're really not trying hard enough. Because magic is something that operates at all levels of your being, and the psychological level, the intellectual level, the mind level is just one part of the equation. And for you to really truly realise your magical potential, you need to be firing on all cylinders, and that means bringing about the cause and effect at every level of your being in every realm. And a lot of the classical works on magic kind of tell you this, but it seems to get lost in the mix somehow. They talk about when you make your calls, your summonings, your invocations, that you do it at all levels. You call with your mind, body and spirit. And that really is a huge clue, because what it's saying there is this is not just a mental exercise. Now, I'm not negating the fact that psychologically, using neurolinguistic programming and other similar psychological techniques, you can do a lot to bring about change within yourself. And all change ultimately does start within the self. As I teach in my enchantment, try that again in English, as I teach in my enchantment classes, if you want to change the universe, start by changing yourself, because if you work hard to bring about a change in the universe and then allow yourself to change, the universe may need changing again because what you wanted it to be has moved. The target has moved. So if you change yourself first, you save yourself some effort because you don't end up transforming the universe twice, because what you originally wanted is now irrelevant and the new you wants something different. So it's the lazy mages school of wizardry is change yourself first, then change the universe. You only have to do it once then, which I think is, conservation of magical energy is a very worthy cause. And why should the environment be the only thing we're conserving? Let's conserve everything. Let's all go to the conservatory. Let's all go to the conservatory. Yes, I spent too long in a movie theatre last night. My bad. The thing is, one of the realizations that's hit me over the head quite powerfully over the recent years, the last 10, 15 years or so, is that the magic, what I like to call the old magic, the magic that you find in stories and legends and myths, I don't think it's just a metaphor. Sometimes it works as a metaphor as well. But when you look at the stories of Merlin and the stories of Gwydion helping young Lou pull the wool over on his mum Arianrod to get his birthright, the magics, the enchantments, the glamours that we find in the myths, legends and fairy tales, I don't think they're just metaphors. I think that they are actual descriptions of things that people have been able to do. Why do I think that? Because during my own journey, discovering and working through visceral magic, discovering the elements of enchantment and playing with them and turning them into workshop and book and using them myself, one of the things I've become pretty certain of is that the old magics are alive and well and just waiting for us to pick up the handbook and learn how to use them again. Enchantment is putting the fluence on people, making them do what you want to do, manipulating them. Now, that can be used for incredibly bad things. It could be used as the latest date rape drug, enchantment, but it can also be used for very good things, and it can be used for very pragmatic things as well. Like any form of magic, it's not inherently good or evil in its own right. It's what you do with it and what your intent is that makes it a good thing or a bad thing. And for my own use of enchantment, I've mostly used it to get out of sticky situations. And of late, I've used it on autopilot. I guess I've spent a lot of time working with it, and it's kind of become automatic. I find that, when we go down to City Hall to get copies of paperwork for various things, and you have to take a number and sit and wait and see somebody, and then they send you to another room where you hand in the form that they gave you in the first room, and then you have to go back to the first room again and take another number and wait for them to come with the document that you requested. Watching people who've been sitting there for 4 or 5 hours going through that process and happening to do that process in 15 minutes because all of the numbers before me got called and nobody responded to them, so they ran through them like they were going out of fashion, and all of a sudden it was our turn. That sort of thing is interesting, I think, and I very much feel the magic that we do in the tradition that I follow, and it's not just me, it's not just me going off the deep end and being a complete lunatic. Well, I am a complete lunatic, but not for that reason. But there are the initiates of the tradition I follow are seeing the same thing. They're seeing this real and concrete and visceral presence of real magic in their lives. And any scientist will say, oh well, it's all subjective and you can't really prove anything. But okay, from standing inside it, it's pretty damn conclusive. And so I think personally the nature of magic is that, in fact, it's actually one of the first things I was told by my very first teacher of magic. If you can imagine it, you can make it happen. The difference between imagining it and making it happen is finding the discipline and finding the key. And so my journey through my magical and spiritual life has become a journey to discover those keys. And this isn't something you find in a book or in an old ruin or buried under a oak tree in the middle of Windsor Great Park. Although you can find clues in those locations, the keys are buried within us. It's unlocking something. I'm not a big fan of video gaming or online games or LARPing or anything like that, but I have a son who is a huge gamer, and so I'm very, very familiar with the idea of unlocking abilities in games. I can't remember what the actual phrase is. Something unlocked, attribute unlocked, or ability unlocked, or power unlocked. But in a lot of games, as you go along, you collect things and you kill the bad guys, and achievement unlocked. That's what it is.
Oh yeah.
And I hate to use a gaming example, but I feel like the keys that we're looking for these things are within us. And in the same way, you come to a point where an experience or an event or a combination of things unlocks an ability within you.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it happen myself with the visceral magic stuff, with the enchantment stuff. We've as a tradition, we've encountered this at a group level, where we've unlocked incredibly potent healing work. For many years we talked about doing healing but never really did much with it, and we finally decided to sit down and work with what we've been given from the ancestors and do some healing work, and guess what? It was incredible. So I'm a true believer in magic as a power in the universe. And that brings me to the second half of my ramble, rant, whatever you want to call it tonight. Which is the real magic? Which is the true magic? And you know what? It all is. One of the things I've been convinced of more than anything in my magical journey is that there is no such thing as the best technique. Any technique you can imagine will work, providing you underpin it with the basics, and that you underpin it with your intent and your focus and your will. All the rest is window dressing. I've always been very fond of saying that spellcrafting, the things you do with your hands and with your voice while you're spellcrafting, to a large extent, they're things to keep you busy so you don't get in the way of the part of you that's actually doing the magic. Because magic works at a visceral, intuitive level. It comes from here, not here. So it is emotional, emotional, intuitive, and very much of the body, not of the mind. But especially in modern Western culture, we're all fairly analytical, despite some people's apparent obliviousness to anything real. The Western mindset is still focused on intellectual and analytical processes, and they block magic. That's why ceremonial magic is so convoluted and difficult and long. My God, are some of those ceremonial magic rituals long. Because when you work from an intellectual perspective, you can still get there, but you have to take a much longer, harder journey. Whereas working intuitively, shamanically, if you will, from the heart, viscerally, it comes a lot easier, providing you don't get in your own way. And the things we do with our hands, the tying the knots, the the drawing of talismans, the waving of wands, and the throwing of coins in the well is all something to keep our consciousness and our intellect occupied so they don't mess it up. Basically, you can do magic with anything. You can do a piece of magic folding an origami airplane. And if you do your basic principles and you connect viscerally, you do it in trance, you go between the worlds, you use your will, your intent, your imagination, you allow yourself to see and believe that the desired goal has already been achieved just for that fraction of a second, it will work. You could do it while knitting. My wife throws pots on the wheel. Now, you may have thought that I was going to say she throws pots at me, but no, she's a potter. She throws pots and bowls and beautiful things on the potter's wheel. And 9 times out of 10 she crafts while she does it. I think it's one of the reasons why her pottery is so beautiful, is because it's filled with magic. So you can make any repetitive or mundane task an act of magic by using that as the distraction for your intellect, whilst you allow your visceral, intuitive, magical self to do the work. So the people that go around collecting spells and thinking this spell is better than that spell because it's more ancient or it comes from a venerable source, well, it's basically like Dumbo's feather at that point. If you believe in the recipe, then you'll get better results, because faith in actually being able to achieve what you're setting out to do is part of the equation. And so if you need that crutch of using ancient arcane traditional methods, then go for it. That's a perfectly valid reason for doing so. But if, as I'm also fond of saying, you find yourself naked in a concrete bunker with a bark plunger, and that's all you've got to work with, you can work just as effectively with those or with nothing at all, because there are no limits to magic. The only limit to magic is what you can imagine and what you allow yourself to do. And the trick is that because we're imperfect vessels, we create limits for ourselves, and as we learn and progress, we learn to transcend those limits. And that is called spiritual evolution, which is ultimately the goal of all this. In most spiritual traditions, the idea is that you have this body of law that enables you to do magical things or miraculous things or healing things, and eventually you come to a point where you attain mastery of them. And the usual description of the state of mastery over magic is the point where you no longer have to do those things. They become irrelevant. And I think that really is the biggest clue of all, that if you master the path of magic and allow yourself to fulfill the potential of what you can imagine, there will come a point where you achieve that goal, and at that point magic ceases to be something you do, it becomes something you are. And that is why in ancient Egypt the adepts of the temple, the great magic workers, were known as me'acheru, which means truth speaking. Not because they always spoke the truth, but because that which they spoke became truth. Now that, boys and girls, is magic. Hope you enjoyed that little rant, and I hope you'll come back for more next week. Take care now.
Bent line, by a straight line, by a crooked line. The Crooked Path, a podcast for modern cunning folk with